Liz was such an angel. She was a lot like my mother in the sense that I always felt like she was too good for the wrestling business. That quote from Bret Hart in 2005 in his Best of His DVD is something I think about when picturing what Miss Elizabeth might be like in person, if I had the opportunity to meet her. I always listen with both ears whenever Bret speaks about someone in a positive light. Of course, he has his faults and flaws and can be bitter at times, which is why I say speaks in a positive way. But when he's looking at the positive side of things, complimenting someone, to me, it really hits home and it's easy to believe. So both my ears are open when he speaks that way. How's it going, everyone? I think you get the gig by now. Every Saturday, I take off my hat and talk about a deceased wrestler or wrestling personality that we grew up watching. Today, it's Liz, Miss Elizabeth, the true first lady of wrestling. They can call Sunny the original diva, but Elizabeth was truly the first woman known as that for that title. In a time when managers were prominent in the mid-'80s, it was on July 30th, 1985, where Randy Savage introduced his real-life wife, Elizabeth Hulette, to be his manager. That was 1 year before I was born to the day. Everyone from Bobby Heenan to Freddie Blassie to Lou Albano to Jimmy Hart were trying to manage the Macho Man, but he picked his real-life wife. Liz was different in that not only was she female, but she managed a heel and didn't act like other heels. When with Macho Man, she never cheated or distracted the officials so her man could gain the upper hand. Rather, it was Randy the one to stand behind her or take her off for a walk to duck babyface opponents and act like the heel. On May 1st, 2003, Elizabeth died of acute toxicity due to a combination of painkillers and vodka. Luger described the incident, her boyfriend at the time, of 3 or 4 years, and he said the following: "I'll just never forget the early morning hours when Liz passed away. We were just watching movies together, sipping on some vodka and popping pills. Literally before the 911 call, I realized that she had stopped breathing. 5 minutes before that, she was standing at the microwave in the kitchen and I was heating up some food. She literally got up and stood right next to me and wanted to help. I told her to sit down and that I had it. She sat down and I went back to fixing what was mine. I look back now at the fragility, the recklessness, and the carelessness. We didn't know that we were playing Russian roulette. 1 minute she was there, and the next minute I was wondering why she wasn't eating and trying to wake her up. I realized she wasn't breathing, panicking, and calling 911. The tragedy of that, to witness that firsthand, I'll never forget. When her death happened, the police naturally took a look at Luger." End quote, by the way. When her death happened, the police naturally took a Luger at just 2 weeks before her death because he was involved in a domestic dispute with her. He allegedly struck her in the garage of their townhouse in Marietta, Georgia. Cobb County Police found Elizabeth with 2 bruised eyes, a bump on her head, and a cut lip. Luger was charged with a misdemeanor count of battery and released on $2,500 bond. Luger still to this day says he did not touch her. Luger ultimately had other legal issues, but played no part in her death criminally, at least not criminally anyway. It's unknown if Liz's battle with substance abuse began in their relationship with Lex, or that it began at the turn of the new millennium, or if it was during her other previous marriage to a man named Kerry Lebetsky, a South Florida attorney who spent a year and a half married to her, from 97 to 99. What hits me about the earlier Luger quote is just how fragile life is. You always think something will happen to somebody else, or that you're too young to die, or that your body can handle it. Elizabeth was only 42 years old. I know that's about substance abuse personally, and while it's behind me, it certainly wasn't easy, and I know that today there's still a ton of mental health and substance issues going around, and the two go hand in hand. And if you're watching this with those, just know 2 things to be true. It gets better, and you matter. So many people, both famous and non-famous, even wrestlers, non-wrestlers, who I know and you know personally, have left this world because they didn't know either of those 2 things to be true. I think repeating both those things every day is helpful in a positive affirmation way. Today, wrestling fans remember Liz fondly. Whether she managed to heel or face Macho Man, her actions remained the same. She was a constant. Whether she was leading the Macho Man to a WWF title at WrestleMania 4, or whether she was turning on him and joining Ric Flair at Super Bowl 96, or in the NWO in 97, or managing Luger in 99, she was a true beauty. Her reunion with Randy Savage at the end of Savage vs. Warrior at WrestleMania 7 in 1991 might be the best WrestleMania moment of all time. It's definitely up there because of how real and how raw it felt. It's unknown if it's her family, who don't particularly like pro wrestling, that is the reason she's not in the WWE Hall of Fame, but her legacy is big enough that it doesn't need an induction. She'll always go down as one of the greatest managers in wrestling history. No one will ever forget her delicate presence. The one and only Miss Elizabeth. May she rest in peace. We'll see you next time. I'm Brett Mix.